Let's move right now, and of course, doing this without the aid of a safety net, as Big Ben is out this morning. But let's move right to Congressman Jim McGovern. And Congressman, you are on the air. Thank you so much, as always, for being here with us today.
Happy to be with you.
Listen, I wanted to talk about a couple of things, and sort of going to the overall plan of the Biden administration, where the nation would like to head. Let's talk about what happened in the Senate this week, this 50-50 vote when it came to the election reform bill. I mean, it seems to me that really two fundamental but different ways to look at this. Mitch McConnell is, why are we doing this? There's no reason to have election reform. Democrats saying there are things that really need to be looked at the federal government and need to be standardized when it comes to, for example, are we going to have early voting? How is that going to be? And I'd like you to address specifically, too, if you feel, are Democrats trying to take control of the elections out of the hands of the states?
What we're trying to do is make sure that the people's voices are heard. I mean, we have a number of states in this country, as we speak, who are trying to pass voter suppression laws. I mean, these are Republican legislatures who believe the only way they can win elections is by getting fewer people to vote. I mean, is that what people want? I certainly hope not. We have a system that draws congressional districts that embraces gerrymandering. I would like to think Democrats and Republicans would like the people to be able to pick their elected officials, and not politicians picking their voters. I mean, I would like to think everybody believes that gerrymandering is not a good, healthy thing for a democracy. And the proliferation of big money in our political system. I mean, do people really want more big money to dictate our politics, or do they want their own voices to be enhanced and strengthened? That's what this is. And the fact that Mitch McConnell won't even allow there to be a debate, if you don't like it, you can vote no. But the Senate is supposed to be a deliberative body, and he won't even allow there to be a debate. It is disgusting. And I hope that President Biden, and I hope that Vice President Harris, and I hope others, will take this argument directly to the people, similar to the way they did with protecting the Affordable Care Act when the Republicans were trying to overturn it. I mean, people need to know, what's going on here. And if you want to protect this democracy, if you want to end things like gerrymandering, big money, and voter suppression laws, then you need to speak up and make your voices heard. I think people power and people pressure now is the only thing that's going to be able to move this thing forward.
Yeah, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that, because the president came out and said, hey, this is just the starting gun. This is far from over. It sure seems over to me, unless the ultimate goal is to do away with the filibuster.
Yeah, well, first of all, I think we should do away with the filibuster because it's been weaponized in a way that basically makes it impossible for the Senate to function. And that happens no matter who's in charge. So, again, the Senate is supposed to be a place where big ideas are debated and then you vote on them. And, you can vote yes, you can vote no, but that's the way it's supposed to work. But to have a filibuster rule where you don't have to show up, there's no sacrifice by anybody who doesn't want to, who wants to block a bill. That's just ridiculous. That's ridiculous. And look, my old friend John Lewis used to say that the vote is not only precious, it is sacred. And anybody who is paying attention right now knows that there are efforts in states all across this country aimed at making it more difficult for certain people to vote, communities of color, senior citizens, people, with disabilities. I mean, there are targeted efforts to make it more difficult for those people to vote. It is wrong. It is undemocratic. And it undermines, I think, what makes this country so special.
Well, doesn't it underline, really the difference between why somebody is a Republican and a Democrat? I mean, I think Republicans look at it as there is a very real concern that there is voter fraud or the potential for voter fraud in America, and that some of the things that now you want to do Democrats want to do at a federal level will simply make it even easier for someone to be able to commit, fraud when it comes time to vote.
So let's get off the lie that there's fraud in our elections, that it made somehow a difference in the last election. I mean, Republican-led courts, judges, Republican-appointed judges, all dismissed every single case that was brought before them by the Trump administration or by Republicans. Republican secretaries of state, basically said there's nothing here. Republican governors in places like, in states that Trump lost, basically said there's no there there. So this is a manufactured, lie aimed at trying to deny people the right to vote. Why would anybody in this country want to deny anybody the right to vote? And here's my advice to Mitch McConnell. Maybe instead of trying to suppress the vote, maybe instead of trying to allow gerrymandering to continue on steroids, maybe instead of allowing more big money into the system, maybe you ought to start thinking of ways to come up with ideas and issues that appeal to more people in this country. But the notion that somehow it is acceptable to make it more difficult for people in black neighborhoods or Latino neighborhoods to vote, I mean that's discrimination, plain and simple, and that's what's going on here. I mean, it's interesting that the areas that Trump wanted to recount were all communities of color. I mean, this is crazy. This has to stop.
All right, I want to go back to the filibuster for a minute. Senator Sinema said, listen, Democrats have more to lose than gain if you do away with the filibuster. What would stop everything that the Biden administration is able to get through over these next 4 years? A Republican gets elected in 2024. The filibuster has been done away with. They have control of the Senate, and a new administration comes in and simply undoes everything from the past 4 years. And that would not seem to be an effective way to govern.
Well, elections have consequences, Hank. I mean, so if you don't want what Biden is trying to do to be undone, then you ought to elect people who will not undo it. If you do, then you will elect people who do want to undo it. I mean, that's what this is the way our system works. So the notion that somehow our focus ought to be on making sure that there can be no change in this country. I don't think that that's right. Look, I don't want things that I care about undone. But if the majority of the American people, vote in a way that they want something entirely different than me, well, that's the way the system works. I mean, and we've seen when the Republicans control the presidency and the two chambers, they tried to undo the Affordable Care Act. The American people revolted, and thank God for John McCain for putting the brakes on that. But the bottom line is that people do have power, even if things switch. So, look, I mean, this is a democracy. We're supposed to be able to, whatever the people want, the people should get. I mean, that's the people should have power, and so that's where the focus ought to be. I mean, and again, I think what Mitch McConnell believes is that if we have a system that is fair, and we have a system that is transparent, and we have a system that is not fueled by big money, that it makes it more difficult for them. Well, tough. Change your policies. Actually start responding to some of the concerns of average people in this country, and maybe you'll win more elections. But trying to win elections by making it more difficult for people to vote, I think that's disgusting. I really do.
But doesn't the filibuster? I mean, isn't what it's supposed to be? Is that it will drive compromise so that we don't have minority voices? We're always very careful here in America that the minority opinion gets its fair due, its fair hearing. Filibuster is supposed to kind of force Democrats, Republicans work together, find some common ground, and even though it doesn't relate directly to the filibuster, isn't that what we're finally seeing with the infrastructure plan? That we may very well have Democrats, Republicans working together, and we may have a breakthrough on that.
Well, look, we should always try to find common ground, and with compromise as possible, we ought to do it. You don't need a filibuster to do that. In fact, I'm trying to remember of any time lately where the filibuster has actually played a role in trying to bring people together, and where it's actually resulted in good compromise legislation. Instead, it's been used to block things. time and time and time again. It's been used to prevent and debate. Why is debate something that we should be afraid of? Why is a discussion of some of these issues something that we need to prevent? I don't quite understand that. In the United States Congress, the greatest deliberative body in the world, we're being told that we can't have a debate. That's not a good thing. I mean, this is nuts. What's happening right now? And look, one of the problem right now in terms of forging a compromise is that you have to deal with people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, like this guy Paul Gosar, or Matt Gaetz, or Josh Hawley, people who, quite frankly, represent the lunatic fringe of the Republican Party. Those are the people that are now have risen up amongst the ranks. It's hard to try to find common ground with those people. They're not interested in legislating. They're interested in getting Twitter followers and getting on Fox TV and just enhancing their personal fame. They're not interested in making anything better for this country. I mean, they're not bringing legislation to the floor to try to help rebuild America's infrastructure, or trying to deal with issues of poverty, or trying to deal with the climate crisis, or improve healthcare in this country. That's not what they're interested in. I mean, it's all about hot button issues to try to, distract people from what they're really all about. So, look, obviously the filibuster is going to remain in place because Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema don't want to budge. Whether it can be tweaked, and there can be some exceptions, like on issues like voting rights, or whether they can lower it from 60 to 55, or whether they can demand rules that if you want to filibuster, you have to be present on the Senate floor, and you just can't mail it in. That you have to feel strongly enough about something to actually be there. I mean, whatever. I mean, there may be some possible ways to move in that direction, but in the meantime, we need to move things forward. And here's my final point on the infrastructure bill. I mean, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to get something done to reinvest in our country. If you want to lowball it, understand this is probably the only chance in many, many years that we're going to have to actually take on infrastructure challenges, from rail to airports to roads to bridges to water.
That's
stores,
where
to dealing with some of the challenges of climate crisis. So we ought to go big, and even if that means using reconciliation, we need to get this done.
That's where we have to end it as we've run into the news. Congressman Jim McGovern, thank you.